Okay, everybody, good morning. $11.10 Baltics, 12.10, sorry, 10.10 Germany, 12.10 in the Eye of Sauron's time zone. 10.10 Germany, 9.10 London. If you're around Europe, good morning. If you're in Australia, good evening. Very early morning to you if you're in North America. Thank you for joining. Only got one more stream this week. As I mentioned, summer was canceled here in the Baltics, so luckily I'm going to take a quick trip down to south of Europe with my godson over the next couple days. I want to focus on the little bit tenderness of the price in Bitcoin, and also some things with the Ukraine war. Not deep statistics here, but just a couple of news bits that caught my attention, and some things that I watch. Maybe you guys will be interested as well. So having said that, let's look at some charts here with Bitcoin. Switching my camera angle over, or my screen, I should say. It's a good old power curve. So as I'm titling this stream, BTC Stoicism. Again, Stephen Pernud from Money or Debt, good follow, talks about this. Stoicism, obviously, it's a ancient Greek, maybe before that term, I'm not sure, but we can't control the events around us, but we can control how we react to the events around us. And Bitcoin is a very useful tool, I think, to keep calm in light of an ever chaotic world. If we go, this is a log linear chart, okay? So it's base 1,000 actually. Every, it doesn't matter the base you have. It could be base 8, 10, doesn't matter. We're 1,000 units higher. Each line up we go. If I go log, which is hard to see here, and don't, ignore my software is still messed up, but you see that it becomes a straight line. It's very hard to see on this, but that's what a power curve is, okay? It's a straight line on log. But I don't show log most of the time because it's harder to track. So you get this nice little curve, asymptotic, sort of disinflationary, slowly, ever more slower rate of growth for Bitcoin in terms of the US dollar. That's what we get. Take off the 0th and the 100th, right? These extremes, they're probably never going to happen again. Maybe they will, but probably. Never say never, but very statistically unlikely. Zoom in even more. All right, I pulled this model in just before coming live here. So August 26th, $110,000 Bitcoin. We finished August 25th, 110.89. See the trend, 111,000. That's down from August 24th. See the price, 113,000. We were above, and we were above for a while. Actually, all summer. Okay, a little bit of a dip right there in midsummer. Literally midsummer Feast of St. John as we celebrate here in the Baltics. I can't really express enough how grateful I am that, for my family, for my friends, how this asset, there's so many great things about it. You can hold your own keys anywhere. You can be fully sovereign, redundant. You can have multiple backups. You can use multi-sig. I'm very grateful for what the asset offers my family in terms of storing wealth. And, again, I'm not a technical trader, but I really do like looking at the big picture as far as the numbers go. So, again, backing up, we are totally on trend. All right. This trend is an extremely solid trend, 96% R squared. It goes up $100 a day at the moment. As you know, I've been talking about how it's probably about 2041 where we equalize on global-based money. That is matching the total value of all gold, silver in the world, plus central bank money. Those are asset and liabilities there, so you got to take the unbacked central bank money, but it's going to be about 100, maybe 150 trillion at this point in value. All right. I haven't talked about it as much. I extended this chart out. Usually I only go with this chart only to early 2030s. So somewhere around here, we will pass it. Somewhere between $5 and $7 million Bitcoin. And I also know clearly we could be on a SATS standard well before then. All right. You can see the fun numbers there. A 10th percentile move of Bitcoin would be 2 million. It's 20 times today's price, roughly. 90th percentile, 12 million, which is 120th times today's price, if my math is correct. Trend itself is 60 times today's price. No model is perfect. Been following this for 7 years now. But if you just go back in time, you think about again here, good old Peter Zion calling Bitcoin $17,000 overvalued when it was $16,000 on Joe Rogan. All the FTX debacle here, the shitcoinery, Celsius, all the blow-ups. Good morning, Midwest picker. What are you picking? Same thing here. All right, sorry. I'm pointing on the wrong screen so I don't get the tooltip. When we puked here from $6,000 Bitcoin down to $3,000 Bitcoin, I remember this well. The biggest drop, I was actually on a plane to the U.S., somewhere here. And we stayed, $3,000, $4,000 Bitcoin for some months. People were calling it dead. And of course, this old crypto winter, same thing. Which one? Which one? Point is, every time it recovers and it comes back stronger, it's good to hear. It's the only way to do it. And again, without even talking about where we could go in this cycle, which I think is quite high based on past performance. Not a guarantee of future returns, as they say, but the fact that we're not there yet is really not anything concerning. It's just every day that this chart puts in a new price that is at or close to this black line. And when it's above the black line, it's even more gravy. But it further solidifies this trend and this R squared. Okay, so yes, there can be times where, we go down to the 10th or the 20th percentile or the 30th percentile, or close to the 0th percentile, which was somewhere here, very close. Definitely below the 10th here when Bitcoin was $244 and 10th percentile was $319. But based on the trend, based on the recovery, it really should give you confidence. Like supreme confidence. Of course, there's risks to Bitcoin like there is to everything. But if you actually look at the numbers, you pull out, you don't sort of get ensconced in Peter Schiff talk or TikTok doom. You can use this as a tool to really free your mind on where your family's future, can go and focus on the important things. I'm going to show more numbers here. I know it's kind of a little bit of a soapbox, but just wanted to say those things. I think I actually probably know who you are talking about. One of the rich guys who just hated Bitcoiners. I believe he would call Bitcoiners you drop the F bomb, it would be the bit Fs. It's probably that guy you're talking about. He was one of the more hilarious old men yelling at Bitcoin. Just so you look at these tops again, these two in particular, 2017 and 2021. Let's take off everything but the 90th. All right, these are every 10th percentile. So here's the 90th. And now I'm going to show you the 100th, which means, again, this is based on a multiple over or under trend. So 90% of the time, the price was always under this red line. All right. This really didn't exist at the time. When we look back in past, it was more kind of a variation of this, of this red line. That's what the trend was at the time, the power trend. So let's put on the 100th. All right, so first of all, again, just to clarify, this is 2x the trend at the time. The 100th percentile was 7.8x. All right, so we did not hit that in 2017. That's a huge, to get 8x the trend is enormous, and we did not hit that. What you're seeing, but the point is to show you the gap between the 99th and the 100th, because if I show the 80th is much closer. And I could show you the top 10 as well. You'd get a similar effect. Like the 90, I don't really remember even. The 99th percentile is still a big distance lower than 7.8x the trend. So the point is it's very, very rare, extremely rare. But Bitcoin has hit it every prior cycle. So for me, that is a huge indicator. This is when it probably painted here. It actually kind of hit it twice. This 100 hit it here and then here. But it's never been close to that since 2013. Okay. So I don't think we're going to hit the 100th. That would be beyond hyper-Bitcoinization. But as this thing grows, as the network grows, I think we're going to continue to have these booms. I really do. I will only join the naysayers of this sort of boom bust cycle in Bitcoin when we, for the next full cycle, really hover around this trend. And by the way, most of those people that probably say we're normalizing aren't even power trend followers, in my view. So anyway, that's my point there. Yeah, I'll try to find that guy's name. I can't remember his name either, but it's hilarious. Good morning, Francisco. My Francisco, of course. I'm thinking already of Italian because I'm going to Italy tomorrow. Okay, so again, stoicism, we're having a mild price action this end of the August summer days. Nothing to be worried about. Even if we go down to here again, look at that. Look at that price back in April. 80, under 80K. It seemed very sad at the time. People were thinking we were dipping back. 100K was the top. It just looks like a blip on the radar now in log scale. Very nice. Thank you for joining. Yeah, I knew I could definitely sell. Your name was probably Spanish, but for whatever reason, I decided to put the Italian accent on there. I'm a big fan of Italy and Spain. Like I said, summer is canceled here in the Baltics, so have to go down there and warm up for a couple days. Yes, Dan Pena. Dan Pena. A ridiculous person. Always angry. Okay, so I wanted to max this chart out, going to 2050 just because it's fun, first of all, right? $20 million Bitcoin in December 2050. Of course, we're going to be well on a SAT standard by then, I'm sure. But I think in 15 years, that's when we really, $4 or $5 million Bitcoin, that's when it's going to really explode. My view. Okay, so again, in the idea of keeping calm, Bitcoin stoicism, we've dropped under the power trend for 2 days or one full day, and now we're currently, with this model, $1,000 under. All beautiful places. Did you talk to Clooney on Lake Como? Now I want to show a little bit different one. Okay, so this one is an insane chart. So this is market cap per hash. I've shown this before, but not with the 10th percentiles, just to show you what's kind of going on. Remember, Bitcoin market cap generally goes up. Bitcoin hash rate really goes up all the time, okay? And when hash rate goes up faster than market cap, you'll get a decreasing trend. That's what we have here, okay? The idea, when I was drawing this out, I was thinking, okay, when can we see when it pumps? Sorry, this is just, there's so much numbers here, but obviously you see here back in 2013, we're getting back to this 100th percentile. So when this chart is abnormally high, we're in a abnormally high, perhaps a boom time, bubble time, or whatever. So I just wanted to see where we are relative to that today. Okay, so now these numbers are going to look insane. They're insanely small. They start out not even a penny on any of the indicators. This is market cap of Bitcoin, the system per hash. All right, so this is these are crazy numbers, but it's just kind of funny to look like as it reminds me of like The Matrix or some movies where you just have all these numbers in there, just get ever smaller. So the point is Bitcoin is continually getting more secure, even relative to its value. All right, hash rate is growing way in excess of market cap. But when market cap catches up and booms above, that's what I wanted to see. So we can see here the 2017. This is why, by the way, hash rate follows price. Prices booming, and then well, I shouldn't say it like that. Hash rate follows price in the boom times. Price follows hash rate in the bear. But in any event, we're in a very abnormally high situation. Let's take off the 100th percentile and the 0th because it's always kind of too much. Even the 10th. Sorry, guys. I see some of your questions. I'll get to it. Good morning, Gio. Good morning. So we got to the 90th percentile. Again, don't worry about the numbers. They're insanely small numbers, but we were abnormally high here. And then let's look at 2020. Sorry, this is a huge chart. 2021. Price basically topped out here once and then here in November. So stayed this, unlike the other ones, the PSR ratios, which I'll show in a second, this was always high through the high periods of the boom periods. This is not it's not as good of an R squared as over pure price, right? 87% R squared. But it still shows you what's happening. It's, of course, a power curve, as most things are with Bitcoin. What you do notice, though, interesting, is market cap is kind of catching up. In other words, this black line, which is the all-time trend, seems to be too aggressive at this point, is what it is. It's easy, like once we go to the projections, we go steeper down, and that's not actually happening in reality. So it's better to look at the evolving trend lines, which are here. So again, what can we conclude here? Just like with price, we're always in boom times bumping up above the 90th. Okay, so I'm just going to leave the 90th now. That's it. Okay, so we bumped above it here, 2013. Bumped above it here, 2017, 2021. And again, the fact that this is generally on a downtrend is because hash rate is always, Bitcoin is extremely secure. So there's way more hashes per market cap dollar than market cap dollar, basically. It's always getting more secure. But it is kind of leveling off, interestingly, on log scale. So the question will be, this boom, right? Do we keep pushing? And will this signal a top? Don't know the answer to that yet, but again, we're close. We're back in the above 90th percentile range, which is, I think, good and interesting. But we're not, just want to keep track of this as the boom keeps going, because we see that in 2017, we barely kissed this trend. And in 2021, we were above it for the whole year. And then once price started to fall off, this normalizes very quickly. That's the point. And when it normalizes very quickly, as it did in 2022, could signal another bear period. But we're not there yet. So I thought it's a little bit of a different view, but I thought it was interesting. Well, at least not one, right? Midwest Picker asked about retiring with Bitcoin. I would just direct you to good old Sminston's chart. He has a great retirement table. If you guys haven't seen it, I'll pull it up here today. This is actually not the retirement chart, but this shows how you can stack into retirement. And the idea basically is all of his retirement tables, they're pretty much maxed out at 10 Bitcoin. So if you can get to 10 Bitcoin, that's, on most countries, regular living standards with expenses and I think he uses 7% inflation. It works. But these are how to get to something like 10 Bitcoin. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Actually, this doesn't get to even 9, but it does get to 8 after 30 years. So here's your answer. If you stack 1,000K a week at Bitcoin based on the power curve, right? Based on the power curve, you'll get to 8 Bitcoins after 30 years. I know everything's an if, all right, with dollar cost averaging or whatever, but, and then of course, if I showed you the retirement chart, it maxes out at 10, like 10 for the longest period of time of someone's life until I think it's 100 even he does. 10 should be enough. That's what he says. So hopefully that kind of answers your question a little bit. This is a good point. Keep stacking. Do you? More than the Chinese, yes, but I don't know. Crazy political days. So anyway, market cap per hash is kind of a weird one, right? It goes the opposite direction, but we still, when market cap gets ahead of the trend, that's something to look out for. So it happened clearly here, here, here. It's happening again, but it's not happening. We're right at the beginning of it. So I'll keep an eye on it. Now market cap per address, and using these bands is much better, right? So let's zoom in. Let's take off the 10th and the 0th percentile again, just to show you the general trends, range, all right, for the life of Bitcoin. So addresses also grow in power. This is a better percentage, R squared, 90%. And basically, this is the value of the Bitcoin network per address. It's active address, in fact. So 65 grand, whatever, that would put you in the 90th percentile in 2013. 250 grand would put you in the 90th percentile in 2017. 2021, $1 million, $900,000 per market cap. And now we're already up in the 90th percentile again, 3 million. So we keep pushing, again, for all the bearishness, for all the people that get concerned or say this is the top or whatever. We're moving there yet, but we always move higher. We always move higher. Calling the top is another thing, but just, again, take comfort in this chart, always moving higher at a 90% R squared. It's pretty incredible. This was actually a very pronounced drop in this metric, right, after 2021, and it happened almost immediately. So this is pretty helpful. All right, so by December 2021, we were below the 90th, and then early 2022 coming back to trend. Where are we now? We're climbing higher and higher. And this is where also I need to do these two charts for you. So I need to show the every 10th and then the 90th and up, which I don't have at the moment. But it seems that that's what I need to do as we move closer into the bull here, because the 90th and up, when I show 91st percentile, 92nd, 3rd, that will show us maybe, what these figures actually mean. Because the 100th is too far away, right? See, 100th is very far away of the 90th. And as expected, we're not close to the 100th now. Yeah, lots changing here for sure. I need to get back to my, sort of Wall Street volume chart, which I really need to update, but, get all the ETFs, get all the treasury companies, strategy. Let's look at how the volume moves. It's a little bit more finicky type of a chart than with just simple network metrics like I have here, but I'll get there. Personally, I'm totally fine with this. I mean, it's caveat emptor for anybody. So just using altcoins or shitcoins to buy more Bitcoin, I think if you can do it, do it. It seems difficult, more and more difficult, I should say, every cycle. But, altcoins are, in some sense, just leveraging on the Bitcoin price, really. No value there, but just leverage. So, as Gio says, try to choose between 80,000 of them now. Is it really 80,000 now? It's more and more difficult every cycle. So again, the stoicism, I think really, I hope it should, manifest itself in these charts for us. Like, here was a really rough period, the old crypto winter. But even, these periods, even as price was going down, we had these little mini runs, 2019, 2023, early 2024, because of the ETF approvals. It's not only these extensions or these bumps that we should get excited about, but it's, again, just leave the 90th. So it's not only when you get to the 90th that we should be excited about, but it's just the trend. The trend is awesome. All right, so again, back to the old 2017 top. There's only $100,000, $130,000 market cap per address. Now, the Bitcoin network is worth 1.1 million per address on a trend. The actual is 3.3. So again, I'll try to track these. Hello, ETJ. I mean, just purely as a trade. Has nothing to do with BTC technically. It's just, and that's the Silicon Valley shitcoin, right? So a lot of insiders, a lot of things to be worried about, but caveat emptor. I'm not recommending them. I don't look at those charts. I'm more interested in just BTC, but to address the question, I think people are going to do what they want to do, right? People trade options, derivatives, lever up on BitMEX or whatever. Yeah, I want to talk about this. Putin is never going to meet Zelensky. Never. Zelensky has continued to humiliate Putin, and the Ukrainians are just doing incredible work. But Trump wants that Nobel Peace Prize. Trump wants the Nobel Peace Prize, so he's going to do everything he can to try to get that meeting, but it's never going to happen. Putin will never, ever meet with Zelensky. Yeah, I don't know about ADA. I haven't checked in a long time. Yeah, I definitely agree. Don't hold it the bear. No problem. ETJ. Okay, so again, stoicism is the point of this video. Now, back to the PSR analysis. Here we're looking at the 90th and up. Okay, so the PSR, I need to show you this again. Let's take this off. Remember what PSR is. It's market cap divided by miner revenue on a trailing 12-month basis. It's a very smooth indicator, smooth on the denominator. So market cap obviously has jagged things, but if we take trailing 12-month miner revenue, it looks like this. All right, so still not at a high. It's a very interesting metric. This is an academic metric. I don't know what miners' actual revenue is. This is just taking all the Bitcoin that they mine over a 365-day period and rolling it in dollar terms. So we peaked here. It's close, 16.5 billion 2021. Down, this is the halving. It's amazing how the halving just sliced off the revenue. And then it went down. Now it's going back up again. Still not at the all-time high, though. And again, just for context, what does this number compare to? The gold market probably now is a couple $100 billion a year. Used to be $100 billion when gold was like 1,000. Now it's $3,000 an ounce. It's going on $300 billion a year, the gold market, the gold mining market. That's just pure extraction. Of course, there's other things you can do. You can recycle gold and use it in industry, sell coins, all sorts of stuff. But coins, of course, is downstream. But as far as the main mining production, $300 billion a year for the gold market. Oil markets are $1 trillion+ industry a year. So Bitcoin is still a flea when we look at those numbers. But if you compare this, how many times does this go into the market cap? That's my PSR ratio, which I don't know why more people don't do it. I think it's a very good indicator. So we had double top 2013, 17, 2021, huge top, and it only catches the first top. Right? You ignore the scam top, so to speak. And now where we at? We're climbing back to an all-time high, but this thing always grows. So then I go back to this chart. This is the same PSR. Again, the 100th percentile always looks insane. It's way higher than the 99th percentile. So let's go here. Look at this, where this metric fell in the prior years, prior cycles. It always hit. It always hit. So again, I really think it's going to hit again. I could be wrong, but why would we try to fix something that's not broken? It's just slowly marching up again. We haven't got to it yet. So from this indicator, again, Bitcoin stoicism, we should just relax about it. It doesn't have to hit it, but it's a pretty, if we just assume the 4-year cycles, it's always hit it. Yes, 100% Midwest picker. And there's really nothing, this goes back to my transaction value of Bitcoin versus Fedwire. Fedwire is $1.1 quadrillion, Bitcoin $7 trillion. There's actually nothing technically that needs to change for Bitcoin, just the price needs to rise. But still, the price can't rise immediately, not for Bitcoin's sake, although I think it's not just for Bitcoin's sake, but really for the financial system's sake. If you got $1.1 quadrillion of base money flowing through Fedwire every year, and you have only $7 trillion of Bitcoin flowing through the Bitcoin network each year, even if they wanted to all move into Bitcoin, it would be, again, not technically impossible. All the price has to do is rise, but you would get massive fees, and the chain would be clogged, and it would just be very difficult. Which is why I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think hyper Bitcoinization works in that scenario. So, but yeah, like you said, price generally needs to rise. Let's number go up technology, and generally it does. So, the only way that I will say that the bottom, how do I say this? The only thing that I would need to see in all of my analysis that I do to say that Bitcoin's not going to keep following these 4-year boom bust cycles is we need to negate this part, right? And I'm not looking at, again, this is 90th and up. Do I have every 10? I don't even know if I do. Let me check. Anyway, I know there's so many different charts I can show you, but this is, very low territory, very low territory, very low territory here. Let's just go back to the basic. This is the basic chart. Every 10th. Let's look at the bottoms. All right, so we've always, I think almost always hit the, actually we didn't in 2019 was relatively stable. $3,000, $4,000 low compared to the prior top of 1,200. Got pretty close here, the Peter Zion wet dream moment. But the only way I would say we're out of this 4-year boom bust cycle is if we way cancel this out. Like we only bottom at maybe this number during the next downturn, like the 40th percentile or something. Your guess is as good as mine if that's actually going to happen. But I'm not going to bet against it at the moment. Like I'm not going to try to prepare. Again, everybody do what you need to do, but probably makes sense to lighten up the stack as we get well over 90th percentile and, prepare to buy more on the way down. What I'm going to show. Remind you, end of 2025 is coming up. It's kind of a caveman analysis, but assuming the 4-year cycles hold almost exactly, 125K, 90th is 2x, 250. And the 95th, which is not on this chart, I could pull it up, but it's something like 3x or 375. So to me, that's got to be max. Anything above that is a massive gain and probably unsustainable gain. But you just have to call it out when it comes. I'll show you the FedWire chart again because it's always helpful for stoicism. Again, when I say stoicism, it's money or debt is the idea there, but we can't control everything markets are going to throw at us, but we can control the way we look at it, react. The global financial system primarily is using dollars. This is how much dollars go through the global financial system. $1.1 quadrillion a year at the core level. This isn't even credit cards or deposit accounts. This is real-time gross settlement, just like Bitcoin, FedWire. 1.1 quadrillion versus Bitcoin, 7 trillion. It's 157 times smaller, which is actually pretty good compared to it used to be 600 million times smaller. I know that's like Trump math. It's really, I should say, FedWire is 600 million times bigger. Although I guess you can, with multiples, you could say it the other way. You cannot say 1,000% decrease in prices. That's for sure. Anyway, I would love for this to go to FedWire's value in the next cycle. Is it going to happen? Doesn't really matter what Bitcoin podcasts you watch. There's no one that can, with a straight face, say that this is going to happen. Totally good plan. And if you have Bitcoin in your retirement account, good for you. Tax free. I'm reading your post, ETJ. Thank you. Yeah, I don't have much research on them yet. People are saying strategy MSTR is following a power curve now, which I think it probably will have to in the future, especially if it's just a Bitcoin dominated company. But I don't have the charts yet on them. But I'll get them. I do want to do it more. I agree with you, but I keep looking at gold. Gold is not as nearly good as money as Bitcoin, for sure. But even gold is pretty volatile against the dollar, right? It was $1,100 in 2011. No, sorry, $1,900 in 2011, almost 2,000, then fell back down to 1,200. Went sideways to down for 6 years, 7 years. Now it's back up to 3,300. It's going to take time. And I have a hard time seeing how Bitcoin will not also do that for a while. I do think eventually we'll get on that SAT standard. I actually do think that. It's just such good money. It's so easy to send around. Lightning payments are free. I think we will get there. It's going to take a long time. And this chart should show you how long it's going to take. Like, even if they wanted to go all in Bitcoin, it's harder for the legacy financial system to go in. So we can work around it. We can build around it. We can build awesome apps. I got my BTC Pay server. I just accept donations from anybody worldwide. It's great. Please do if you want, if you like the free content. But the legacy system is what's going to take time to get to Bitcoin. Quickly on the stoicism, I want to play this. I'm just going to read the subtitles. Dominic Sandbrook just came out. Very good interview on, just to show you guys a couple things I'm watching. A couple things on, again, we can't really, at least I live in Eastern Europe, very much in the crosshairs of Putin at the moment. I don't know if copyrights work or whatever, so I'm just going to read the subtitles here. I just want to read this, okay? So I think maybe the war in Ukraine is a really good example of this, because Putin, if he was here now, would say, and he said it himself, I'm doing what Peter the Great did. I'm doing what Catherine the Great did. I want to make Russia strong, and that's my job. And I really would like an outlet on the Black Sea. I'd like Crimea. And actually, I'd really like Ukraine to be a puppet state. And that's what empires do. We want puppets to bring back puppet states. We want our sphere of influence. We'll do whatever the hell we want, because that's what big powers do. That's exactly what he would say. And look, you in the West having a hissy fit. And then he says, look, Putin is a terrible man, committed genocide in Ukraine, but we should not pretend that Putin is some weird, abnormal. I'm now paraphrasing, right? And he says exactly, he can't be allowed to do it. It's the most obvious thing in the world. Like, he wants to conquer that country, and it's not in our interest to let him. And he wrote this a column and everything. So this is basically how we feel about what's happening. And then it's very interesting. The irony is not lost on me. I don't know if other people can't get this, but here's a good, very good libertarian. Grand Turian is the thread. The article I'm not going to read, but basically there's been whispers now. When Vance was in the UK, he tried to meet, he might still be in the UK, I don't even know. I don't think he is, but he tried to meet with Zelensky, who is, so just so you know, in Ukrainian politics, Zelensky is still ahead by a mile. He might not run when they have elections, but he's still, the president, the nation's at war. Zelensky is super principled, popular general that probably, they definitely made this mistake in the counteroffensive of 2023, which is probably not all Zelensky's doing. Anyway, he's now ambassador to the UK, and he was contacted multiple times by Vance because they're trying to, they basically want to prop Zelensky up as a now new supporter. And this is not the first story. They've been looking for other people. They've been looking at Tymoshenko, this old oil baron woman who was in jail even for a time. Poroshenko, the prior president. And this was really good that Zelensky, in my opinion, this is extremely, it's just extremely commendable what these Ukrainians are doing. So Zelensky actually declined to meet with Vance. And then here you get, again, the irony. $5 worth of stale cookies and a phone call between the two Americans raiding against the EU were a coup, apparently, but this is fine. Not sure if you understand what he's talking about here. He's talking about in 2014, all the sort of what are now the MAGA right, many libertarians saying that this was somehow a coup. What, Ukraine fighting for their freedom against the corrupt puppet president Yanukovych. Victoria Nuland was handing out cookies on the Maidan, and then there was this leaked phone call where she was saying how they want to support Yatsenuk. And this was not even after Ukraine had been liberated, and I use that word liberated, by the people of, Yanukovych fled to Russia. He didn't flee to Syria, Italy, Afghanistan, whatever. He didn't flee to, Thailand. He went to Russia. Still to this day, lives in a multi-million-dollar penthouse in Moscow. And this to me is an amazing thing. I'm going to bring it back to the Stoicism idea, but it's clearly not the case that the U.S. was behind the Maidan revolution of 2014. I was there in early 2014. It started in November 2013. All right, this was about Ukraine freeing themselves from the Russian shackles, the empire, moving towards Europe. Then you have this, the irony is not lost on me, but the idea that apparently those that are sort of MAGA types now say, oh, well, this was all just neocon CIA influenced coups, which is completely laughable. From 2014, you have this Victoria Nuland phone call. But you know what? Now we're going to go over the head of Zelensky and the Ukrainian people, and we're going to try to get another popular leader in that we can work with. So this goes back to your question or your comment, Gio, about Putin not wanting to meet with Zelensky. I think the inspiration of the Ukrainians, to me, is incredible. I mean, they're literally fighting for us in the Baltics. You can't really say it any other way. They're fighting for us. And this is the best way to look at Putin is, let me keep reading this because I think he says it more. Yeah, people are saying he's not going to do it. He's not going to do it. He wrote this column in 2022 saying he's not going to do it. But you're just not looking at the way Putin sees the world. I mean, why wouldn't you think he was going to do it? The West is so divided. Boris Johnson having a cake. President of the United States can't walk, 3,000 years old. If you're him, you're ruthless, cold-blooded. You have an amoral view of human relations, and all you care about is basically old-fashioned Russian imperialism. Why wouldn't you do it? And so he's saying this is what empires have done throughout history. Again, like Dominic is saying, me personally, we need to stop him. Don't delude yourself. We need to stop him. But Putin would just say, I don't think he. I missed the point, but he says basically, you don't understand the game. That's what Putin would tell the West, and I think that's true. Describing it as a game is sad, but it's a good interview. I'd recommend it. And if you combine this idea with this idea that the West is just like any other country trying to push, if you want to say that Vance is trying to push Zelensky, prop up Zelensky, and this is just normal realpolitik, and he declines, like it's just all the more reason to support Ukraine. I mean, this Ukraine is like one of the most sovereign nations in the world. And I use that in the Putin term because Putin doesn't think that we're sovereign in the Baltics. He thinks that we're can just be steamrolled like we were in World War II. So anyway, it's a bit of a rant. 100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. He was a comedic actor. Wasn't a dancer. Probably did dances in his comedy routines, but he was a comedian. Started very young in Moscow, and then came back to Ukraine for his career. Decided to not stay in Moscow, which of course is where Zelensky's first language is Russian. He's a native Russian speaker, but so it's just it's laughable that people say that if you're Russian speaking, you need to be under the thumb of Russia. How do you think the people in the Donbass feel about Russia liberation, Russia support? I mean, their towns are complete rubble. They're completely destroyed. I'm also doing this for my own sanity, by the way. I know for those of you that just come for the Bitcoin and you don't care about Ukraine or it's far away, like, I'm a big fan of Dominic Sandbrook, by the way. If you don't watch his Rest is History, you should. He's also lucky, I think, in some ways to be in the UK, a little bit far away, an island. But this is wild stuff. I mean, to think about, Donald Trump just talked about that, how he wants the Department of War now, not the Department of Defense. What's in some ways is actually, it's true. I mean, it used to be called the Department of War. We're at least maybe more honest about war. I certainly don't support a lot of the Trump admin moves towards Ukraine. For example, this one. Just for those that really aren't sort of following this story closely, like Ukraine has been thrown so much just garbage, and really, they've gotten a lot of support from our allies, but from us, and certainly from us in the Baltics, we don't have as much money as those in France or whatever. But I mean, this story is not going away. I mean, Putin is never going to meet with Zelensky. Zelensky undermines Putin's entire worldview. I can't find this other thing. Anyway, this is probably the Stoics' way to look at war. This is just how they are. You can't say that it's about NATO or anything else. It's just it's Russian imperialism. They want to dominate Ukraine. How regular citizens like us deal with that is very hard. Obviously, I choose Bitcoin to protect myself, but it doesn't protect me from bombs dropping. So I don't know. I say this stuff for my own sanity as well. Yeah, it's been 3.5 years. Started in February 2022. I don't see it ending this year. Ukraine would like it to end. Russia would not. You might have seen recent estimates. Like if Russia continues on the current pace, so again, remember, they had like 30% of Ukraine in February 2022, March. Then they retreated because they're just terrible tacticians and ogres. And so they had to retreat. Now they control like 20% of the Ukraine, and in the last 3 years, they've gotten exactly 1% more of Ukraine over 3 years. So they were at 30% during the initial invasion, went down to 20. Now they're like, or maybe they went down to 18, let's say. Now they're at 19 or 19%. And the latest estimates basically are as if they continue on their current pace, which is not a guarantee. I mean, Ukrainians need more air defense every day, but if they continue on their current pace, it would take them 4 years just to annex the Donbass, which is the regions. I'm using it as these 4 regions, which is actually not correct, but the 4 regions that Russia illegally occupied and said these are our regions. And they didn't even occupy all of the regions. None of the 4 regions they've occupied in its entirety. But if they were even just going to get the Donbass, which I guess is just the 2 regions, Donetsk and Luhansk, it would take them, they said, 4 years at the current pace and another 2 million casualties. So, and Russia would be prepared to do it. There's nothing stopping Russia from doing it other than us. This is what the Trump admin doesn't get. And Ukraine's not going to give up. You know, Ukraine's not going to step back from these unbelievably fortified frontline trenches and everything. You know, there's drones flying all around there now, which they've built up over 11 years. You know, this war started in 2014. Yeah, I mean, this is important to Trump to say that. It's and of course Putin would flatter Trump by saying it. Can't prove the negative. I think it's possibly true that he would not have, but the war still would have gone on, and at some point they would have tried to do, I think, what they're doing anyway, because it's all that they know how to do. They can't fix their own country. They can't, you know, as I've said many times, 2 in 5 Russians don't have a toilet. It's all really they know how to do is just grab more power and expand, grab more land. I just say thank God for us in Europe on the eastern flank that they're so incompetent. I mean, grabbing 1% of Ukrainian territory in 3 years is an utter embarrassment. How big is the Russian landmass? It's 12 time zones. I mean, it's, they've expanded Russian territory 0.01% in 3 years. Whatever it is, 0.001% in 3 years. These goons, these anti-liberal, tyrannical, just absolute goons. I wanted to find another one that Pekka, there's another good follow here, is Pekka Kallioniemi, Finnish, does these Vatnik soups, but I can't find it, but he made a good point recently. I follow this guy. It's very good. Finnish. Follow these Vatnik soups, but if you look at the allies of Ukraine during this time, they've just been very lukewarm. We see that the U.S. recently, even though Trump said the U.S. should go on the offense, Ukraine should go on the offense, Biden didn't let them go on the offense. It was reported that they actually have been hampering their use of ATACMS. And, Italy still buys natural gas and all these, you just look around Europe. It's like, if we really wanted to stop this madness, and I'm speaking of Europe now, because this is the one thing that the MAGA administration is right about, is Europe should do more. We really could. I think that we could, but it takes a lot more than what we're doing. But in any event, like I said, I can't control it. Nobody here watching the stream probably can control it. We're not in politics, so Just trying to convey my views here, my sanity. Anyway, I know it's a very odd duality, right? A lot of people only talk about libertarian stuff and politics and the Ukraine war, and a lot of people only talk about Bitcoin, but these are the two things that I'm interested in. So let me know if you guys want to see any other charts here. I'll pull up the old projection model here so we can see where Bitcoin market cap is versus the other major assets. Pull this up in a second. When will Third World War happen? Hopefully not in our lifetimes, hopefully never, but there's another thing they talk about here. It's very good, very good historian is they finished the interview actually talking about nukes. It's quite possible that nukes themselves, as bad as they are, even though we're stuck with them, they stopped another war breaking out at like a World War scale, in the 60s and the 70s. Of course, there's a lot of dark times, Cuban Missile Crisis, all the rest, but it's also not a guarantee that, some nation out of fear or imperialism wouldn't use nukes, and Russia could be one. Never know. But the one good thing that we have with Russia and Ukraine and nukes, there's a few good things. Most countries have told Putin, China included, that if you use a nuke, you're absolutely effed. I mean, don't do it. You're going to ruin everybody's relationship. It's just going to be bad, and you're probably going to be a dead man. But if they use a nuke in Ukraine, I mean, it's not necessarily going to affect the West, and so the West would retaliate with traditional, primarily the United States would retaliate with traditional arms. That's what's been stated, right? They said they would do that to the Black Sea coast and everything. But the other thing that really doesn't help Russia is the simple winds. So the winds blow right back to Moscow. So that's the geographical big disadvantage of nukes for Russia, is if they use a nuke in Ukraine. Again, I'm not saying it can't happen, but the winds blow right back to Moscow. I didn't catch that, actually. Let me pull up my site. We looking on my site or the... because I have it here. Yeah, we probably did. Here's the stock list. Top 10 stocks in Bitcoin, which is just incredible. There's another stoic argument for Bitcoin, is if you see that we're in this ballpark of liquid assets that the public can trade. And by the way, bonds are way bigger than stocks, right? So the government itself has $37 trillion in treasury securities, which are publicly traded, but mostly institutions trade them, which shows you we got a while to go. But also, if you think that Bitcoin is 6 here and apparently was 5, as you say, Midwest picker, if it was just 5 before this dip, how high are we really going to go during this run? I mean, are we going to double and then be the size of NVIDIA and stay there? The question is, will we stay there? That's where I think these trend lines really help. We can absolutely double. I believe that we can triple even, but are we going to stay there? Because you're talking on the on the 4-year cycle, only being 6 months away from that. Sorry, less 4 months away, and then are we going to double or triple and then stay? Usually, you don't stay; you fall right back down. So, just how markets kind of work. Yeah, there was a lot of whales. I saw a good tweet from Willy Woo yesterday about there's still sub $10 Bitcoin buyers from 2011 that can easily either dump or short on the market. So other reasons why I don't think Bitcoin is mature enough yet. I think it's getting there, but it's not mature enough yet. Here's I showed this yesterday, but just to come back to this. So Bitcoin is the only one that moves differently than the rest. All the rest move in exponential curves. Apple moves really fast, and it's probably not going to keep up, but it is. I didn't talk about this yesterday, but the fact that Apple is from 2008, this all depends on your starting date when you draw this trend line, but this trend, they've been on a 23% CAGR since 2008, since the birth of Bitcoin. It's a remarkable run. It's the one thing that kind of keeps ahead of Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's going to do that, but it's. And the funny thing is, gold doesn't do it. Treasuries don't do it. Base money supply doesn't do it. Bitcoin easily passes. %100%, literally 100%. It could double. I absolutely believe that. And if it doubles, pretty likely it's going to fade back again. Let me pull up the top 90. To show you. Coming. So here's the top 10. And let me take the 40th off. So again, I think both of these are still in play, basically. Bitcoin ping pongs and overshoots sometimes the 90th and then goes back to the 10th. That's basically what happens, right? Okay. Didn't really quite do it in 2019, interestingly, but it did in 2023. Why would this time be different? That's my question. Here's where we put the top 90th now. So this is very detailed. And again, look still where the difference is between the 100th and the 90th. So this is the 100th. There's such a gap. So this is not going to happen. It's just not going to happen in my view. And if you look at the prior cycle, this didn't happen, this didn't happen, this didn't happen. But as long as it did happen, why should we discount it? So it clearly happened here. Clearly happened here. And it happened in 2021. So those are the target bands. Pull it out to the end of the year. There you go. For the returners, I'm sorry, I know I show this a lot, but there it is. 250 is 2x, 90th percentile. 3x is the 96th-ish percentile. 350 or 375, it's 2.8x, the trend. And once you start, this little mountain thing is just counting the days that we go above the 90th. So it happened 99 days in 2021. A little bit it was bumping back up, but not much, not making huge mountains. once you make something that goes over, another observation with this is once you go over, say, 2 months, 60 days, like it's the one. it is the blow off top. Wherever you are, it is the one. So here we're at 60, and we're still counting up, but we're going down in price. So why would this not happen again? Yeah, I would like to too. Again, if you think about the dumps, you know, I need to show that chart again from Checkmate, but obviously this is getting close to an 80% dump at this point from this top. So 50 would be the price, should have been at, right, 30. So let's put it on. Nope, 40th. Yeah, kind of like I said before, something like the 40th would be what you said. Midwest picker, something like the 40th percentile around the trend would reflect a 50% dump from the prior top, right? So 30, I'm just looking right here. I'm looking at the number 4. See the number 4 in the tooltip, 29, 30K. A year, in this case, a year and a half after the top. That is, that would be a moderate trend. That is if the price did not cross below this number 4. Is it going to happen next time? I'm going to still say no for as long as it keeps going. I mean, actually, the shallowest drop was here, interestingly. If you look at the 2017, like the huge blow off quickly, and then a long decline, and then this. Right, so whoops. Let's go to the 30th. I know these lines, these green lines are kind of harder to see, but we hit something like the 30th around the trend in 20. And again, the trend was higher. So this black line is all time. It's just too much. I should probably put the evolving trend, but the actual trend was right about here at the time. Okay, so just imagine a black line right there. So the 30th percentile, or, 0.5x the trend takes you to 3,500, 3,700. So even this, in my opinion, would be a victory for this cycle if we only go down to the 30th percentile. But I think we could very easily touch levels like this again, which again is 0.5x the trend. So if the trend, by the way, in 2026 year end, let's just assume the very simple year drops again. So 2026 year end, the trend would be 175K. 0.5x, that would be 88K. Why could it not do that? Why could it do 76K, or even closer to the 2021 top? Actually, that might be too low, but probably something like the 15th percentile would be 60K, which would be the prior top from the prior cycles. So again, hopefully you guys get what I'm saying here. It's just stoicism is the good way to look at it. We can't really control what the markets will throw at us, but we can look statistically at where they typically are and really ignore the day-to-day noise. the price action right here in 2022 was probably something like the 12th percentile, right? The 10th and the 20th are here, 0.3 to 0.4x rounded. The actual price was closer to 0.3x, the trend. So, yeah, 12th percentile. It's a deep, deep drop. Massive buying opportunity. Buy Bitcoin. Isn't it incredible? That was only 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago. And now we're at 110K and people are freaking out when it dips, a few grand. All right, guys. That's probably enough for stoicism for today. It's absolutely true. Wall Street is more involved. Miners are getting bigger. Some consolidation. It's absolutely true that they control these booms more than here or here. It's absolutely true. Still a lot of FUD out there. There's quantum FUD. There's lots of FUD. War. But I think this is the best model as far as, keeping your wits about you. I'm happy to be proven wrong. Hopefully to the upside, not the downside. But until we're proven wrong here, I personally wouldn't bet against this. Never financial advice, but I personally wouldn't bet against these moves. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, listening to the Ukraine rants as well. Pro-Ukraine, pro-free world rants. A lot of this is for my own sanity as well as yours. Hopefully it keeps you sane as far as the Bitcoin stuff goes. So I think it's going to be pretty exciting next 6 months, 4 to 6 months. So do keep checking in. Once we start making these mountains, it's going to be fun. Right? And we'll just have to keep watching it. Yeah. That's a wonderful message right there, isn't it? Wonderful message right there. I was around at this point, but was not buying. Too scared. Too confused. Didn't understand it. Didn't understand the system. All right, guys. Thank you for watching. Keep tuning in. If you want to donate, I'd always appreciate it right there. It always gets cut off. Value for value. I plan to keep everything free. No newsletter type stuff. You don't have to subscribe to anything, just my BTC Pay servers right here. Thank you, Daniel. Good to hear from you, as always. You can do Lightning or on-chain, no problem. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you for watching. I won't be here until next week, so have a great week. Let's finish it off the summer strong. Take care.